Barca, the general who taught elephants to swim. The Roman scouts watched in stunned silence. The great river Rhone, its waters fast and deep, stood between them and the Carthaginian army. Surely, Hannibal would not attempt the crossing here. It was suicide. No man could move such a massive force across this river, let alone the towering war elephants that stood in formation at the riverbank, their massive trunks curling in anticipation. Then, as if defying all logic, the beasts began to step into the rushing current. The shadow of Rome. Hannibal Barca had always known his destiny. From the time his father, Hamilcar, had led him to the altar as a child and made him swear an oath of eternal hatred toward Rome, his path had been clear. Now, standing on the banks of the Rhone, that oath burned in his chest like a brand. His army had marched through Spain, fought their way through hostile Gallic tribes, and now, the only thing that stood between them and the Alps was this treacherous river. The Romans were close, perhaps days away, and if they caught him here, trapped against the water, it would be the end. The scouts had returned with grim reports. The river was too wide, too fast. The enemy knew this and would never expect him to cross here. That was exactly why he would. Hannibal turned to his brother, Mago. They think we cannot cross. A slow smile curled his lips. Let us prove them wrong. The secret of the elephants. The real challenge was not the men. His soldiers were hardened, fearless. They would cross by rafts, even swim if they had to. But the elephants, his secret weapon against the Romans, posed a different problem. These beasts, the towering war machines of Carthage, were more than just transport, they were terror incarnate on the battlefield. The Romans had never fought against such creatures before. If he could bring them across, they would strike fear into the enemy's heart before the battle had even begun. But how do you make an elephant swim? Hannibal had prepared for this long before they left Carthage. He had trained his elephants in the still waters of Africa, teaching them to follow their handlers into deep water. But this river was different, cold, swift, deadly. If he failed, the beasts would panic, drown, and he would lose the element of surprise. As night fell, he gathered his commanders. We will build floating rafts, he said, spreading a map on the ground. But not just any rafts. These must feel solid beneath the elephant's feet. If they sense the movement of water below them, they will panic. He turned to his engineers. We will lash them together, cover them in dirt, and trick the beasts into thinking they are walking on land. Once they are far enough into the water, we release the tethering logs and pull them across. The plan was madness. It was also brilliant. The night of the crossing. The Romans had scouts watching, but they could not see what was happening under cover of darkness. The Carthaginians worked silently, binding rafts together, covering them with layers of earth and straw. By the time the sun began to rise, the first of the elephants was stepping cautiously onto a floating island. The handlers moved carefully, murmuring in soft, soothing tones as the beasts took hesitant steps forward. The first few animals reached the far end of the raft before realizing the land beneath them was not solid. One bellowed in panic, but there was no turning back. Mago backed the signal, and with a great pull of the ropes, the raft was set adrift. The river's current seized it at once, dragging it forward. Hannibal held his breath. If the elephants panicked now, they would be lost. The lead elephant, a massive bull named Suras, lifted his trunk and let out a deafening roar. For a moment, all seemed lost. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of panicking, Suras stepped off the raft into the water. And then he began to swim. One by one, the other elephants followed, their enormous bodies floating as their powerful legs churned against the current. The handlers, who had feared being trampled, clung to their backs. A cheer rose from the men on the shore. The impossible was happening. The elephants, Hannibal's secret weapon, were crossing the Rhone. Terror in the Roman camp. When the Romans heard the news, they did not believe it. A river crossing was dangerous enough, but elephants? Impossible. Yet the scouts confirmed it. They swim like sea beasts, one terrified soldier muttered. By the gods, what manner of army is this? The Roman general, Scipio, was no fool. He had expected to face Hannibal on the plains, where Roman discipline and cavalry superiority would win the day. Now, he was faced with an army that had defied nature itself. Scipio clenched his jaw. Then we meet him in the Alps, he said grimly. Let us see if his beasts can climb mountains. The path to Rome. By the time Hannibal's army reached the far side of the river, dawn was breaking. The elephants stood on solid ground once more, shaking water from their massive hides. Hannibal ran a hand over Surasa's wet trunk and smiled. Rome would never see them coming. The Alps awaited, a deadly wall of ice and rock that had broken lesser armies. But Hannibal knew one thing the Romans did not: nothing was impossible. Not for him.